Hello, we're live now. Let me just make sure. Yeah. Let's see. Hello? Testing, testing. Okay. All right. Well, we are here again for the fourth show of State of the People, the June show. We have quite a packed panel this month. Let's see. Let me just double check that my audio is working because I can't hear. Hello? This is weird. It keeps stopping. Okay, let's try this again. Much better. Okay. Kristen, you can hear me? Okay, okay, good. Just want to make sure it's visible on the stream as well. Well, anyway, so we have quite a packed stream this month. We have about 10 people, including me and Pawan, who is joining me shortly. We're going to have a 2-hour panel talking about surviving as community builders and marketers, whether it's in Web3 or beyond, and how we think about work, how we think about freelancing, how we think about sustaining ourselves throughout our career, throughout our imagination and our sense of creativity. So I definitely want to dig into that. This is not going to be a typical like working in Web3 kind of thing because I kind of really dislike those. They're kind of annoying sometimes. They're a little bit too much. And I really want to focus this on just how we are sustaining ourselves throughout this year, throughout how we're thinking about doing that in the future. Because personally, I spend a lot of time doing that myself, thinking about how to do that, doing a lot of research, doing a lot of creative thinking, whether that is just observational or whether that is watching a bunch of YouTube videos. And I see sort of the hot takes, the spicy takes on marketing. I don't always comment on them because, and it, sometimes people wouldn't like my response or whatever. But I think that this is a very important conversation to have, especially at this time when there's a lot of people who are hiring for these roles. And so I think it's better time than ever to prepare ourselves individually and collectively for the roles that we would like to have, not always necessarily the roles that are out there, because I think that it is important to build a culture of what you want to see in the world, basically. So we're going to have that discussion today. And so I will go ahead and bring up my co-host, and then we will slowly get some more people up here. Let's see. Now, I'm not a genius at StreamYard, so you'll have to bear with me for a little bit. Let's see if this works. Okay, it worked.
Oh, hi, I see myself. Hey, Riley. Hey, everyone.
Good to see you again. Good to have you here.
Yes, our monthly date. At
Yes,
least one
yes.
guaranteed one.
Um, so before we get started, do you have any thoughts for the upcoming panel and the people who are waiting to speak with us?
Yeah, I just love what you said of how to stay creative, like how this is different. We will have maybe a little bit of that. I think some folks did want to share about their career journey, to share any inspiration for people that are thinking about what's next. But you're part of how do we all just stay sane and tap into some of that creativity, I think is so relevant, and what I really care about and what I love about us even doing this every month. It really came out of, okay, how can we do and learn at the same time? Like, honestly, I had watched some Unlonely streams but didn't know how to use it. So thanks, Riley. You're handling the tech right now. But just to even be able to participate in this, have these beautiful pastel swirls, it just like makes me happy and brings me joy while doing that. Doing this is something I really appreciate. And yeah, we have the 10 people. So just we'll see how this new format, even as we learn and iterate for each of these streams, we'll see how this goes as well, of just having a big, large conversation.
Yeah, I really like how each one is different and how we get different perspectives every month. I just want to remind people that the State of People is 3 people working on this show every month. We have myself, Pawan, and Rakshita, who does design for our flyers and the backgrounds here on the stream. And we also run off of a hypersub subscription model. So if you want to subscribe, feel free to do that. And we also run off donations. So we have our ENS at the bottom here that you can send anything you want to. We accept all donations. But we will go ahead and get into the thick of it. Let me see if I can get the sort of uh, blankness here.
And I noticed when we logged into this StreamYard, I got a notification that said there's capacity for 10 people, which is exactly the number of guests that we will have coming in and out today. So it would be pretty wild to see if we need to use that full max capacity.
Okay, we have a bunch of people up here now.
Wow, that's the first.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, friends.
Just wanted to go ahead and start this off by giving everyone a chance to give a little 2-minute intro. I know sometimes when we do introductions, we tend to ramble on, so try to keep it short and sweet. And we can go ahead and start our conversation after that. So if, Emily, you want to go first? You're muted.
It had to happen to somebody. Oh, wait, we still can't hear you, I don't think.
I can unmute you. Oh. Yeah, you're still muted.
Okay,
There
I
you
think
go.
I fixed it.
There was like a pop-up blocking the bottom bar. I was just saying, I see some familiar faces here. Hey, Brittany. I'm Emily. It's late for me, and there's like a whole parade happening outside. So this is going to be like my cozy hangout time, and I'm excited to hang out with you all. Um, yeah, I think I'm well known as a marketer in the space. I've done 8 years of marketing. Before I got into crypto marketing, I did purely paid performance marketing for like e-commerce, DTC. And I started at Hype, which is a Web3 marketing agency, about 3 or 4 years ago. So most of my day to day is just growing crypto brands. I do still do some like Web2 or non crypto brands on the side, mainly to just stay in the know of all things marketing and growth.
Thank you so much for that. Brittany, do you want to go next?
Sure, I can take it from here. I'm also using this as my cozy hangout, late evening time. Yeah, I'm Bruni. I am a community person who also dabbles a little bit in marketing. I also do writing, photography, just a little bit of everything. And I think this is what I bring to the space, this strong backbone in storytelling and world building. Right now, freelancing full time. It's a wild, but also very fun time, and I'm very excited to be here, learning from everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And I would love to hear your intro, Jenny.
Hi, nice to see you all. I'm really happy to be here. Well, my name is Genesis, but some people know me as Jenny from the blog on Twitter. And well, I started working crypto 4 years ago, but I bring 8 years of experience in marketing. So the first time I entered to the space is because I started to buy crypto, and then I thought that, well, maybe, I mean, when I was digging some projects to invest, I was like, hey, maybe they will need some help in marketing, and that's how I try to do some SEO on LinkedIn and got my first job in blockchain, and that was really cool. It was in a cryptocurrency exchange. And since then, I've been, landing in several roles related in community management, talking about digital fashion, NFTs, marketplaces, and now gaming, which is really fun. And I really enjoy, how do people can uh, interact, in the space without knowing that they're using blockchain in some scenarios, right? So that was really cool. And well, that's kind of what I'm doing now.
That's so exciting. It's great to see so many like the diverse experience that we all have. And I've been in the space since summer of 2021, but I spent that year sort of learning on my own and not really interacting with other people. So I had this sort of knowledge before I came in, and I think that sort of prepared me for helping other people out who were coming in at the very same time I was in early 2022, which is the same time I met Poan as well, actually. And so I think that the experience that we had in marketing and community building before coming into the space is really beneficial to how we interact with each other and our communities here. So our goal for today is to talk about how we are sort of surviving, whether that is working or staying sane, or sort of how we are continuing to be creative. And I'm hoping that we are continuing to be creative outside of Twitter. Because a couple days ago, I saw one of my good friends wrote a thread about how to get a job in Web3 marketing or Web3 at all. And one of the top things was get on Twitter and be active. And while I do agree with that to an extent, I would say that the best thing that has happened for me this year was staying away from the slop and the absolute nonsense that Twitter has sort of mutated into, and giving myself the time and space to explore other experiences and other bits of my own creativity. And I'm wondering if you all have had that experience as well.
I can jump in because I'm going through the exact same thing. I only saw your message with the link for this 15 minutes ago because I'm also taking a step back, at least for the summer. I think that's, I guess, the best time, the time that's more forgiving if you're not chronically online. And I'm doing this also for similar reasons to kind of refuel my creativity. So when I come back to it, and I'm also, yeah, sharing my brain cells with projects that I'm helping to grow, I also, yeah, have fresh eyes. I have energy to go through it. So yeah, I think being really intentional, it's, yeah, I mean, it's a cliche at this point, but it's also very true. So I'm being very intentional with it, staying away as much as possible from Twitter. I'm hanging out mostly on Farcaster these days because I feel like there I get inspiration instead of just like noise, noise, noise. So yeah, I can definitely resonate with that a lot.
Emily, I saw that you agreed heavily with that thread, so I want to hear your thoughts.
I think is this thread from Rachel, or was it a different thread? So I work with Rachel personally, and I think her and I are both like always online. I'm going to speak to a few different streams right now. I think the first stream is just being a crypto marketer, and then also just like mental health and being a human. And then I'll tie it back into creativity. Specifically, I've done a lot of hiring for Hype the last 6 months, and we do look for people active on Twitter. The main reason why is because it's a really good proxy of how plugged into the meta you are. With crypto, things change so fast. So like yesterday, it was ETH ETF. Avail also launched at the same time. Like every day, there's some type of news and some type of new narrative to stay on top of. And it's definitely straining, I think, on just like cognitive load to always have to be plugged in. So it's this balance of, one, you need to really know yourself. Like for me personally, I'm a workaholic. I have no kids. So I definitely have this privilege of being online more. And plus, I just love what I do. But there are moments like after ECC, just 2 or 3 weeks ago, where I was so tapped out. Like my Telegram is full, Twitter is full. So I think it depends on what your intention is. If it is for creativity, I can't speak for anyone else, but I think how people gain creativity can happen in different ways. Like I know I've had friends where they like to lock themselves into a room and just create. And for me, I find that my creativity comes from absorbing a ton of information and then spitting out like idea babies off of that. But sometimes I also need to recharge, and I do that by going into nature or logging off over the weekend. So I think it really depends on like just doing self check-ins with yourself. But yeah, speaking of creativity, I think that would vary per person. But being active on crypto Twitter, at least for the signals that we look for when hiring crypto marketers, it does help as a fair signal, mainly because we're trying to look for people that love being in the space, actively engage with it. And I think showing up is a proxy for that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I have been very active on Twitter for the longest time, and there's no way I would have, gotten this big of a network and these many friends, and not just followers, but this much insight if I wasn't. But I think that it has sort of devolved not just the culture, but the people who are working in the space as well, by being, I think it is possible to be too online, and it's also possible to be chronically online and not add to the slop, right? And so there's a difference, and you're right, there is a great balance to be had, not only with yourself, but just sort of uh, observationally understanding the space so that you can know what's going on, but also like not sort of remove yourself a little bit from it, because I think that is why I think that is sort of what's contributing to the terrible memes that we see that just aren't really. There's number one, it's bad art, and it's just like it's just sort of dystopian levels of obnoxious behavior. That I don't want to contribute to, and I know other people do, and it's sort of in that sort of NFT sphere. You don't see as much in the DeFi space, but it's like the NFT people that are contributing to those like terrible behaviors a lot of the time. But
And
anyway,
oh, I was gonna have a comment because yeah, Riley, you and I met online through the BFF community, and then we got to meet IRL finally and do this monthly stream, which is great. But Emily, Jenny, and Bruni, I just met you by like sliding into your DMs before the stream, and I had to ping Riley and say I might be getting caught up in all the spam DMs, so maybe you can ping them. So just really real life example of when there's that overwhelm and sifting through the noise. But for the other three, since I don't know you, you might not know this, but I used to work at Twitter. So I was there for a few years, and I remember during the pandemic. So just to build on what Riley said, we all work at this organization, and news is the product of staying on top of like what is happening in the world, what are the movements, what's relevant in culture. And a lot of us would just feel so heavy because the news was dark. There was a lot of really unpleasant things. So I remember confiding to some other colleagues that we really liked TikTok as an escape because we just don't want to deal with news and negativity. We just want like a lighthearted dance or a fun recipe. Actually, I'm doing a lot of cottage cheese these days because I'm on cottage cheese social media. But I think that's really important of just like knowing what is your purpose for being on these different platforms and for what. So just want to do a quick intro for the other three I don't know as well, and just build up with that.
that's a good point. My escape social media is Instagram. So I go there and I sort of observe how people are, at least the people I follow, how people are creating memes there. And it is a completely different world, right? But a lot of what I see is like bed rotting and just like different type of rotting. It's like girl stuff, and it's such a different world that I think is funnier and more in tune with like themselves and culture, sort of.
Yeah, I use Instagram as well, just to like get the memes and animal videos my non-crypto friends are sending me. I actually saw, Jenny, you have a cat and a dog. Can you introduce them? That would be
Yeah, I
awesome.
mean, you saw that, right? The cat, yeah, she needs love. She's here with me. But like, I mean, I do use, well, my cat is here. Hi. Yeah, my daughter was sleeping. Well, I do use Instagram and TikTok, but I was thinking about, I used to be a heavy user and Snapchat heavy user. And actually Snapchat used to bring a lot of good content in the past. And I don't know, I don't use it as often I did before. So
It's probably been 10 years since I've opened Snapchat.
yeah, and it's crazy because like I think about all the filters, I mean the idea of virtual reality actually started there, right? I mean now we're following that in the metaverse and but I think like it had a lot of potential. But following like what you say, Pawan, talking about like real identities, that's something that's happening in gaming. Like for example, uh I'm freelancing from this gaming project and they were trying to they hired me as a community manager slash marketing specialist. And we wanted to add a collab manager that can run, work with all the communities and so. And it was, I had no idea like how many people try to fit into the role of if I was speaking with the same person with different identities, because they never wanted to show. I mean, I know everything is really private and I do understand that, but nobody wanted to share like a resume that maybe I was used to see in the past, you know. So in the end, I had to do a collab manager role, and then with another person who was also doing that, but like, I mean, they barely show up, or maybe never send reports. So I wonder, like, hey, how is the workflow of this, you know? And I feel like sometimes I do like Twitter, but I also appreciate kind of like this formality of like, you know, meeting people in real life, or at least having a, you know, meetup call, Google Meets, you know?
I mean, don't get me wrong, I do love Twitter. That's why I need breaks because otherwise I just spend way too much time there. I think also maybe what gave me a bit of a yikes momentarily was because I heard many times like, well, how can you be, you know, a person in the space and not be on Twitter? Like, what do you have to show for yourself professionally? And that really rubbed me the wrong way because I have my work to show. And I am, you know, like a community person. I am like, I do many things, but I'm not a brand. And I do, yeah, it's complicated these days. I feel like everyone, or at least I feel like there is some degree of pressure for everyone, especially in the space, to also like build their own personal brand to some degree. Um, I'm not very much interested in this. So I think that's also why I feel a bit more free to just take step back from time to time. I'm still there. I'm still lurking. I'm just not engaging as intensely. But yeah, I think that's also like the ebbs and flows that feel sustainable for me in the long run.
Mm,
Wow, I
that's a
really,
really good point.
yeah, super resonate with that. I'm very curious. Actually, Jenny, your point on getting these non-traditional resumes. I'm curious what that looks like. And then actually, Emily, I know with all your experience, the fact that you are hiring, yeah, I'm curious what stands out to you, what you're looking for. Maybe you can comment when Jenny shares hers, because like Bruni, I feel the same. Like I was managing other social accounts, and like, you know, those ones were able to double or grow. And so after doing that, I feel tired with my own accounts. And like Bruni, I'm not trying to build up
100%.
my
Yeah,
brand.
exactly.
So I'm hoping, yeah, my work speaks for itself, and I'll still like to connect with people. But yeah, I appreciate hearing someone else saying it. It really validates how I felt about the space. But back to like Jenny in terms of the resumes, and Emily, what you're looking for hiring and being
Oh
creative.
yeah, sure. Well, it was crazy. I mean, first, I never got a resume in a GPG like you know, form or like PNG talking about. And also, I think it depends or on the region, you know, because I know like European style, American style are different, and but when they, for example, they send a resume like talking about European style, they send a picture, but send a picture of their NFTs. And sometimes also I seen in Latin America that they add their NFTs or maybe the POAPs that they, because I mean that's a proof of the attendance that they've been to, they went to different conferences, which is like I find totally amazing. That's how I understand, hey, they are real, you know, because they've been here or they attended these Twitter spaces or whatever. And then something that I could add, maybe it's I think like it's really cool to highlight your I mean all I mean the things that you did, yes, but also your main goals, right? So because like I mean I think I see a resume with a person that worked with like 20 projects, and I was like, oh my god, like I've been in this space for 4 years and I haven't worked in 20 projects so far. And like I find it like, I mean, is it possible, or is he like, I mean, maybe that person is working like, I don't know, 2 hours per project, and how can you finish how can you excel in a I mean in one project if you have so many, you know? Do you own an agency or something? So yeah. And I feel like, I mean, I could totally value creativity. I think I saw a tweet. I don't remember who, but they said that they wanted to send a resume, but instead they sent an NFT to mint. I don't know if you saw it. It went
Oh
viral.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like,
That-
yeah, and same as a pop. I mean, if I see a pop in your resume, actually, I add a pop in my, I mean, on my portfolio, and okay, you can tell like I'm real, but also I'm in the. I mean, I try to be part of the ecosystem, try to use the products, and so. But that NFT minting really, wow, blow my mind. It was really really good.
Emily, your thoughts? Was that good? Would you hire that person?
Okay, first of all, there's like fireworks going off. It's hard for me to think right now. I don't know if you can
Wow,
hear
congratulations.
it. Yeah, congrats for the stream. Show number 4. It's so loud. It's just like buzzing in my ear. I think so. So what we look for when we're hiring, it's really role dependent. And I guess I'll give a very specific example. Like right now, we're looking for social media managers. I also want to preface and say, looking for Web3 or crypto marketers is so different than hiring for Web2 marketers. Main reason is in Web2 marketing, you can essentially just look at the CV or resume and see where did they work at before and what exact marketing functions did they do, whether that's direct response or paid ads or PR or content. And in Web3, few things. So sometimes you're in a marketing team in-house in a Web3 brand, and you're doing everything. You're doing outreach, and that can mean to partners, to KOLs. You could be doing BD. It could also mean you're writing content, whether that's long form or social, graphics in Canva. Like I've seen and heard and interviewed people where there's just like the one-man show doing everything or one-woman show. So first off, yeah, we look for what we're looking for when we're hiring is very dependent on the role. And with like a social media manager in Web3, unlike non-crypto companies, I'm going to likely check like what are their favorite projects in the space and what inspires them specifically in crypto. So is there like a recent social media account you saw? Why did you like it? What stands out about it? And essentially it's a signal to see how aware are they of the ever-changing narratives and metas in crypto, especially I think of Twitter. Of course, there's Farcaster and Lens, and yeah, they're valid channels, but Twitter is really like the main billboard, I would say. So a lot of your comms as a crypto company is usually on Twitter or on X. And when we're hiring a social media manager specifically for Web3, we're looking at how aware are they that maybe companies might be using memes or they're misspelling things on purpose or the grammar is like totally off. And yeah, so it really like every role that we hire for, it varies. And what we look for in the resume usually are things like your favorite projects in that marketing domain. Why did you pick that? Projects that are inspirational to you. This is kind of a signal for how aware are they of new projects popping up. Like right now, there's a lot of data availability or modular infra stacks. We do a lot of DeFi and infra, by the way. So slight nuance here, right? Because like crypto and Web3, if you think of it as an open internet or new internet, there's so many verticals, but at Hype, we mainly do ecosystems, DeFi and infra. But yeah, I don't think there's like a one size fits all, but the main thing we are looking for are how relevant in the current narrative and meta are the projects they're citing and their pattern recognition of what trends or things that you recognize as a consumer on social or as a user that you liked about that project.
That's really great insight. Thank you, Emily. I think it was Jenny who was talking about sort of the communication styles in the space. And I think that that's really important to pick up on as well, because I think that it's quite different from what I've experienced in my career outside of the space. People are maybe a little less well attuned to communication in general, as in replying to messages, as in speaking professionally whatsoever, as in like respectability in any sense of the term. And so I think that that's something that we have to deal with as well. And especially in comms and marketing and community building, where we're dealing with people who just aren't aware of how to communicate like a human being in a job setting or in a community setting where we are trying to value others' opinions and their time specifically. I mean, I will sometimes go days without a response from someone who is either not necessarily a client, but just like just a random person who I'm just trying to have a conversation with. And it's like, really? And like, it, I don't want to go on too much of a tangent, but I think it's important to push our coworkers and our friends to be better at communication, at understanding how to act professionally, and respecting people's time. I'm just wondering what you all think about that specifically, but I'm sure that we can cover other things if you're not really into that.
Well, I will say one thing, the fact that people can be pseudo-anonymous online, right? Like it can be a cartoon or it's just not their face. Sometimes I think that can incite a lot of behavior that you wouldn't typically see in a workplace setting or a professional setting because you do have some type of image to hide behind.
Yeah.
And
That's
true, I think also different channels. Like for instance, I feel like in Discord, people are completely unhinged. And a lot
Mhm.
of, yeah, behavior that wouldn't fly normally just because it's Discord. They're like, oh, this is so informal or this is not professional or things like that. So I think we're still very much navigating new tools and this new like dynamics when it comes to work in the space. I've also seen lots of what Jenny said that people don't even have CVs or they refuse to share any personal. I mean, I get that, but also, yeah, if you're trying to work together, you have to know at least the basics. No, like so. I think we're still very much when we say we're early, it's true in this direction as well. Like we're still very much building this new work dynamics for the new internet, I guess.
And I want to mention that I do understand this is like an international, global, open internet. I totally
Yeah.
understand that. There's different cultures and things, but I think it still stands that we should sort of at least push people to be more open and more communicative.
Mm.
Um, you know, just because, right? Um, that's all. One other thing about having Twitter as your resume. I have mentioned that multiple times over the years, and I do absolutely believe that. I do believe that if you are going to be in the space, you should continually, consistently express what you're good at, be
Mm.
smart, and tell people how smart you are, not just in your opinions, but in the way that you talk about your expertise, right? Because I think one of the things that I know that I do well is sort of express that I am good at this one thing, so that everybody who gets to know me or sees my profile, they know right off the bat or hear about it from other people that I'm good at this one thing. But then once I get good at this one thing, then I want to sort of niche down and sort of add to that lore, because that is what I'm known for, community building, and I want to help other people know that I'm good at thinking about narrative building or world building or a little bit of content marketing here and there. And writing specifically this year, I've been really focused on that. So I think that having people connect you to a job really does help you when you're looking, or when someone is wanting to reach out to you for help with something, because that is like critical, not just for finding a full-time job, but freelance work, because I've been working full-time freelancer, full-time content creator for the past year and a half. And so when I need work, people automatically know what to send to me, right? So I think that that's pretty important for people who are listening to this. What do you all think?
Good point. And I wanted to ask you then, since you mentioned, how do you go about branching out the things you're known for? Because
Mm.
I'm not sure if you mentioned this as openly on Twitter, but for sure on Farcaster, we've been talking more and more, and also your newsletter about dedicating more and more time just to writing. Yeah, I'm curious as to how this process is going for you.
So this process, normally for me, it starts on YouTube and a little bit on Farcaster, where I do my research and observation. I take a look at what people are talking about and what I'm interested in. I do a week of research on a topic, and then I write about it. And so then people get to know sort of this linear progression of like, oh, I'll start on one idea and then I'll follow it along for a couple months. And then eventually you get to a point where you write this like masterpiece that people reference. Because last year I wrote this piece on expansive communities where it explained how Farcaster channels worked before Farcaster channels were a thing. And this year, I recently wrote a piece called Enthusiasm is All You Need, because I've been exploring for weeks this series of filmmaking and screenwriting videos on world building and narrative building. So that gets me an idea of like, that gets me not only out of Twitter and out of Farcaster and out of all these social media and into my own head on like how I'm thinking about a certain thing. So that creates my own niche that I can then tell other people, hey, this is what I am seeing as the sort of the future and how we create narratives for each other. And then because because I see that there are job openings available or people talking about marketing more often, talking about narrative building more often, then I can write for that. So those people that are hiring can see that and reach out to me first, because I don't like spending all day or all week or all month applying for jobs. I would much rather people come to me first. And I'm willing to bet that other people are the same, right? We don't want to spend our time applying for jobs when people can come to us, right? And so that's what happens when you're known for something. That's what happens, and that's what has happened this year for me. As people come to me for writing a specific article or doing a specific summer internship or whatever you want to call it, right? That's the process. And so I write in a Web2 style Beehive newsletter, and then I just copy and paste it over to Mirror, which I'm thinking about moving to a Paragraph. But yeah.
And that's really cool to hear that journey of obviously most people know you rally with all your work with communities. That is one of the main topics we talk about on the stream, in addition to marketing and identity, under the umbrella of we're all people, what's going on, what is the state of the environment. And interesting to hear that from that, you're like, okay, I want to double down on this writing and build expertise here and get inspired from these other mediums. I'd be interested, Emily, back to like how you're hiring for marketing and you're seeing a lot, like how does that play into what you're looking for in terms of, I guess, different skill sets you want to see under this very broad branch of marketing in Web3? And I'm asking also because I invited some people to this stream. Hi, friends, old and new, that are have shared with me how they're struggling in their job search and figuring out what's next, specifically in crypto and in marketing.
Yeah, I'll speak in context of a crypto agency, and I imagine the agency life might be different than in-house, where it's one vertical and you can focus and maybe go a bit more deep. At Hype, we look for more generalist crypto marketers. So there's like a T-shaped diagram I made a long time ago. Nothing new, the T-shaped marketer or T-shaped type of person. This framework has been has been designed for other contexts outside of crypto, but we created one specifically for crypto marketers. So typically we're looking for someone that is a bit more of a generalist, but does have a specialty, whether that's in social media management or campaign strategy or community management. And yeah, I think because we move so fast and we're working with multiple clients and projects at the same time, and sometimes it could be an ecosystem alongside a very specific infra project, alongside, I don't know, like there's many different types of DeFi protocols and infra protocols, and sometimes they also connect together. I think my second year, we had a lot of gaming, NFT, and metaverse projects as well. So we're looking for that person that, one, likes to context switch a lot or isn't feeling overwhelmed by it. And usually that's actually reflected by the breadth of work that you do. So if you enjoy writing and you also showcase, I can see some of your personality online, or multiple different types of projects you're interested in, that can signal that to me. And then specifically to the skill set that we're hiring for, whether that's content writing, or if it's a more senior role where you would lead a team, we would look for that in the resume or cover letter, and then we would drill into it in the interview process. I'll also add, in our interview process, maybe this is helpful, I don't know if other crypto companies do it, but we always do a demo task. Main reason is because sometimes in crypto, like everything can look really good on the CV or resume, but because you're in an interview setting, you can only ask so many questions. And the questions you're usually asking in this space, there isn't a playbook for marketing yet. It's being constantly rewritten, and the marketing fundamentals are there. It's like, okay, who are the users and how do we attract them? But that piece of how to attract them keeps changing, because a lot of the things that we're marketing for are pre-product market fit, meaning it doesn't have like a solid user base to take off yet. And you're still really looking for these early adopters or people that believe in the vision of what the product can be or enable. So because of that, we're seeing a lot more, you'll see all sorts of marketing tactics that keep changing. This year, it was like airdrop farming, points program. Last year, or when I first started, it was like Glean. I don't know if you remember that 4 years ago. And then it went to like Zeely, Crew3, which turned into Zeely, and then like Questen, Intract, all of these different like questing tools. Sometimes you use them all together. Losing my train of thought here a little bit, but yeah, I think we're looking for people that are so plugged in to like stay aware in this, that are aware of the metas in the space. And then we are looking for a mixture of adaptability. So like how versatile, and if you like to context switch, and then we will drill into that specific skill set in the interview and on a demo task, just to give you a bit more time to think outside of the interview setting, and showcase the hard skills, I guess.
Can you give me some insight on how you judge that demo task? I've always wondered about that.
So it depends on what type of demo task. So we'll have a demo task for social media managers. We have one for growth strategists. We'll have one for community managers. And it's a mixture of novelty as well as how, like, pattern recognition of what has worked really well recently. That is a signal or proxy of how in the know you are of the most recent things that have happened in the last 3 months or so. And then we always ask a question for all of them, something like, what is like the most left curve strategy you can think of? And this is where I want to see like people go crazy, right? And it's a mixture of just giving you the chance to do something fun. And also, if you had no limits, because I think a lot of crypto marketing, unlike Web 2 or non-crypto marketing, is you need to like almost be the loudest person on Twitter or on any channel. And so if you had like any resources, unlimited resources at your disposal, or based off what you've seen, what is something in the current meta, in the current time frame that you would love to test if you had this opportunity? But yeah, I don't think there's like a good or bad. It's really subjective, I think, and it's based on the timeline, the more I think about it. And I'm just comparing to like hiring in Web 2 marketing. It's so different. Like even me, I don't think, like, there's no way anyone can be an expert in the space, because the space is always changing. So that's why even me, I'm always like just locked into Twitter. Yeah, I need to go outside more.
I think we all do. Jenny, you had something to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think like it's crazy how working in technology, it can give you so many possibilities. Like working back in Web 2, I remember my first job was in McDonald's, and then I started to work in Ford. So I mean, I wasn't looking to work in cars, but definitely when I wanted to enter, like they were like, "Yeah, but you don't have experience working with cars." I had no idea about engines, and so, but I was like, "Hey, I'm an expert in social media." And actually, the process was so long, and I think because they were kind of like they were in a rush to find someone, they hired me. But I mean, I do understand. Like, if you're an expert, I mean, if you start working in retail, then you will work in retail forever. But now I feel like in Web3, as I said in the beginning, like I did DeFi, digital fashion, NFTs, metaverse, now gaming. I mean, I was really surprised about this last gaming project because I told them the only thing that I play was, I don't know, Fortnite, and like I really use my computer, to because I have a MacBook and that's kind of difficult to, to play games. But they were like, no, I mean, you know about tokens, how to, I mean what chain we use, and so like we really need not an expert but someone that can guide us here. So I was like, okay, I will do my best, and I try to learn more. And right now, for example, I'm trying to find I mean, not a role, because now I'm working as a freelancer, but maybe it will be really interesting to work in public goods, and I feel like maybe an advice that I give to people is like, maybe you can start doing, I mean, being a moderator in a Discord, or I mean, in 3 months or 5 months, you can get some. I mean, you can get in the spotlight and maybe get an opportunity there. So I feel like it's really cool when I don't know, like because I think, for example, being a moderator, I have friends that were moderators in Eat Global Discord, and that was amazing. But like, I can't believe, like, I mean, I'm a moderator in McDonald's Twitter. No, I will never hear that. So I really appreciate that. And also something that, I mean, maybe as you said, Emily, about talking about I mean, how to find a job in Web 2 and Web 3. It's totally creativity. I totally value in Web 2. I totally appreciated a portfolio, amazing campaigns and designs. And well, something, maybe a cool tip is like, since I created my own portfolio, my own website, I call it Jenny.world. Definitely, I got better opportunities. They love that I have my own website. And also, well, fun fact is like, when I try to, find some inspiration, I check your portfolio, Riley. I really like it. And yeah, and that's how, I mean, of course, I didn't copy at all, but like, hey, this is really cool. So I kind of, follow what you did.
What's your portfolio link, Riley, so I can stalk it?
Oh, it's Jenny, like Jenny, that world.
Cool.
Thank you.
Oh, mine is a Framer website that I built. It's just Riley Bean. It's, I think it's let's see. I'll send it. I'll send you the link. Here's mine. And I'll put it in the on-only chat too. Thank you for saying that, Jenny. I really appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Let's see. I can't think if it's something to talk about. Pawan, do you have any additional insights that we could spark?
Oh, I was checking in on our other guests. So sorry. Additional insights. Okay, I was just reminded something funny you said, Jenny, about looking at someone's resume and they have like 20 projects. Can they really be involved in that many? And I'm just reminded of, like, we haven't talked about LinkedIn, but when you see people are like an investor in Solana or something, it's like, okay, they bought a couple tokens. And so I wonder if that's what this person did, of like, all right, I have a little bit of ownership in this project and this one, and that's why I can list so many. So I don't know what other people think of that. Is that a positive? Does that get your attention if they list so many things, or is that a detractor, similar to what Jenny said of questioning the validity? I mean, even though, Jenny, as you're talking about your background, like you did NFTs, you're doing gaming, I'm like, wow, that's so diverse. So like clearly it can be done, and that's interesting. But curious, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you can talk about like I mean, which tokens you appreciate, or like projects you're fan of, but like it's, I mean, that's experience, and that's something really personal. So like I don't think that that counts as a, I mean, work experience, right? I mean, that could help you to land a job in a Solana project or Bitcoin or anywhere. But yeah, yeah, it's crazy to find that kind of profiles. But also, I mean, maybe that's also something that not so many people are aware of. But truth is, like, a lot of in gaming collab managers, they work for they don't get, they don't get a full-time role, or we don't talk about like an NDA and so, because they work under a contract, and they usually get offered tokens. So that's something that people maybe need to know, because for example, I prefer to receive my, I mean, they can pay me in crypto, in stable coins, of course. And but there are some people that, I mean, they're so bullish in a project, and they're like, hey, I want to be an early investor, just give me X numbers of tokens and I will do the job. And I mean, that's totally cool. But if they, I mean, if they give me like, I mean, really good prospects and everything, I can totally give them my tokens. But in fact, like, if they have, they're working for 20 projects at the same time, I wonder if they can, help me with running Twitter Spaces or collaborations. And so
Speaking of LinkedIn, I detest LinkedIn. I hate it. I know that for a lot of people, it's like a must. I know Ish from A16Z talks about LinkedIn growth often, because I have notifications on for him, and I learn a lot from what he does. I just do not like LinkedIn personally, but I understand it's a different culture in the blockchain space there. And I appreciate that. I have an appreciation for the different style of person that goes on LinkedIn. I think you have to have a fortified soul to have that website leech onto and just like melt away at your sanity on that specific site. So I appreciate the people that spend time there and create content there. I don't know if I would be extremely happy to do social media there for a brand, but yeah.
That's fair. Was that, at the beginning you had opened the stream with saying, oh, there's a lot of hot takes, kind of spicy, I'm not going to get into that today? Was that
Oh no, we already went over that.
But on LinkedIn, actually, so I know, Emily, you just came from the ECC. I'm out there on the crypto conference circuit a lot, meeting investors, partnerships, meeting the community. And one of my cringy lines is like, we do the whole Telegram exchange, follow each other on Farcaster, Twitter, or whatever. But I do often say and preface that this is so Web 2 of me, but can we also connect on LinkedIn? And I think part of it is with my work, in DeFi, or most recently with Here in Finance, trying to launch something that is more user-friendly towards mainstream. I think it just made more sense for me. I'm meeting a lot of people in TradFi and finance, like folks were trying to bring on chain. And so I needed that LinkedIn connection. But also, so many people use PFPs, myself included, that sometimes it's nice to see a person's real face, which maybe is a trend in Web3, that more people are shifting towards a real face versus a PFP. But that's my confession, that I asked for people's LinkedIn. Don't judge
Yeah.
me too harshly.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. I'm also curious to know what are the results from this? Because I very occasionally, maybe once every 3 months, pop into LinkedIn, and I feel like it's becoming more and more, I don't know, like a copy paste from Instagram, maybe. There's a lot of like, oh, 15 tips to do this and that. And it's becoming also like very much, um, yeah, a lot of coaches and people selling courses and telling you what to do to become successful. So I'm wondering if that's even worthwhile hanging out there.
Yeah, that's why I hate it. I don't want to be sold a course. I don't need. I most likely don't need the course, and that's just like mostly copy and paste from ChatGPT anyway. So
I've heard, so for me personally, sometimes I'll copy and post something I write on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and
exactly.
I'll do that. And I'm pretty channel agnostic, but I think every channel serves a purpose. And humanly, like I can't be on every channel at once. That's actually something I'm very curious how you manage if you're on Lens, Farcaster, Twitter, and YouTube, and Mirror, and Paragraph. Like, do you just like copy paste everything? I'm not sure. I've asked it a few times, but I have heard. So I hear like Maggie from SheFi, she posts on LinkedIn, and I think it's similar to getting over those tech people that may not be fully in crypto, just to give them a glimpse of what's happening. I think there's also some value there if you are building a consumer brand that has some on-chain component. LinkedIn might be great. And the other thing I recently heard also, yeah, so from John Woo, who is Maggie's husband, he was on a podcast with the Melrose, it was like the Melrose PR podcast. And he mentioned something interesting that the LinkedIn algorithm, so, you know, if I have like 10 followers on Twitter and I post something, it's not going to push it to all 10 followers. But if I had 10 followers on LinkedIn, apparently the way the algorithm works right now is it will push it to all 10. So you can make sure you get maximum visibility. It's a linear algorithm. So maybe that's a way to think about marketing yourself or marketing your company, depending on who follows you or who you are following.
That's a really good point. I do know that the LinkedIn algorithm is very different, but I didn't know that it was like that. So that's cool. Yes, I do sort of spread myself out a little bit. That's the balance that we were talking about between Farcaster and Twitter and other places. I'm not on Lens as often. Maybe I open it once a day for like 10 seconds, but mostly Farcaster and Twitter, and then Telegram, of course. And the only Discord I'm really active in is Boys Club. So I try to pare things down quite a bit. But I think LinkedIn is like Maggie's playground. I think that's where she gets a lot of new members, and that's really important. So I think it really depends on your audience, really, and every social media platform is not for everyone. So it's like you have to determine on your own where you're going to focus, because someone like Emily is taking a very hard look at how you're interacting on Twitter. But there may be recruiters who are recruiting based off of your experience on LinkedIn. And that's a different audience, it's a different company, it's a different agency that I'm sure is looking at how you're conducting yourself on LinkedIn specifically and not on Twitter, because I have seen that. Um, because I'm telling you, it's a completely different blockchain world of people who are on LinkedIn and not at all on Twitter. And so I think it's up to you, the user, you, the person, to determine where you're going to focus. Because I think if you can balance, that's great. But if you can focus on one or two, that's also great. It just really depends on your personality and your brain, really, because I think that if you do too many of these things, you just melt to pieces, and you're not going to be your best self in any job if you come in completely burnt out on whatever you're consuming all day, right? Especially since what I consume is a little bit different on YouTube than it is on other social medias.
Hey, sorry, Andrea, I think we have someone backstage waiting
Yes,
to
we do.
So should we grow our pod here?
Yeah, just let's see. Janie, are you there?
Yes.
Hello.
Hi. Sorry, I had a call, so I'm just joining now.
Well, thank you for joining.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me on, Riley, Puan, and I am just meeting the rest of you all here. I think I followed you on Twitter. But yeah, I'm not really sure what was talked about. I literally just hopped on my call, so let me know.
You missed all the
Yeah.
spicy takes.
Oh no, such a hot takes. This is social media, and I was like, I have a lot of hot takes for this right now.
All right, come with your hottest.
Yeah.
We can
We're here for it. Maybe a quick 2-minute intro about yourself, Janie, for the rest of us and anyone who's tuning in right now.
Okay, and then I'll give Emily with a hot take of mine. So my name is Janie Park. On socials right now, I was telling Pawn earlier, I was trying to be in the process of a rebrand, had a little bit of a glitch situation, but again, this is sometimes Web2 socials, which is gated. But yeah, I'm come from the fashion and beauty industry on the Web2 side, so everything from marketing strategy, merchandising ops, PR, events, general management. Worked in New York, also in Asia for about 10 years across Hong Kong, China, Korea, Southeast Asia. Moved back unexpectedly because of the pandemic. Had heard about apes, JPEGs, all this, what I believed was nonsense in crypto in 2021, but didn't actually start learning about it until January 1st of 2022. Started making content, honestly, just for fun. And it's kind of just become and taken a life of its own. It's been a very interesting journey. Had a spaces / podcast on Rug Radio called Fresh on the Blockchain, covering fashion, tech, and culture. And then I heard Riley talking about burnout, and I was like, I 1000% can relate to that because I was starting to work for a digital fashion house. And it's a lot juggling multiple hats like we all do here in Web3. So currently right now, I am working on a media brand called The Digital Runway. It's a newsletter / blog at the moment, and I'll be launching a video podcast soon. But literally it is fashion, tech, and trends. I call it tech because I think the normies and anyone else I know, because I also post a lot on LinkedIn, is that they have a major allergy when it comes to Web3, even AR. AI is hot right now, so they're open to listening to it, even though they're scared. But yeah, I mean, that's basically where I'm at. Working with brands also and clients on marketing, a little bit on brand partnerships and helping them with their business model. So yeah, jack of all trades, trying to do all the things like probably a lot of you here. So I will put a pause on myself, and the spicy hot take, because I come from the fashion and the beauty world, I'll say that the spicy hot take is that actually everyone is already in digital fashion and beauty because they're using a social media filter, which no one thinks about because they think about metaverse, wearables, Roblox, Decentraland, which is obviously a part of it. But I think the easier version is how do we make augmented reality AR filters, which are your social media filters, more palatable for us to even use on our video right now and talking with each other and not even have to wear real clothes. I could just wear like a Uniqlo tank top and just like crazy lit on fire outfit or something like that, like Hunger Games. So that's all.
It's used with fire. I thought Hunger Games and Katniss.
Oh yeah, it was that outfit. I don't know if you guys remember, but that's like
I
the
remember.
for digital fashion, the dress that lights on fire.
That'd be wild if you came in with the digital flames saying that hot take. That would have been perfect.
Okay, Emily, next time I'm also going to find a song with the word fire on it with the whole experience.
And Janie, you were you around? Did you catch the bit when we had our LinkedIn spicy takes and different things? Okay, I wasn't sure if you brought that up. Oh, and I think we have Ted here too.
Yeah, just on that real quick. I mean, I just heard you guys mention something about LinkedIn and sharing on different social platforms. Yes. Hi, Ted.
Hi. I caught some of the LinkedIn and I heard Riley say that like you're like, I hate LinkedIn. So it's funny because now I'm like, okay, now we have somebody who's like posting great content on LinkedIn and building a brand there. So it's interesting. There's lots of opportunities, I guess, everywhere.
Wait, how does this work? Do we raise hands? Is it like spaces or do we just hot mic?
No. You can just unmute.
All right,
Yeah,
you guys have
Chaos.
This is my Asian culture. I'm trying to be respectful. Like my American fiery side sometimes takes the back seat. But LinkedIn, one thing I'll say is for anyone who's doing content out there, I've been doing a lot of test and learn right now across different types of content because I do video too, is repurposing across different social media platforms, but also like I'll take one video and completely change the caption and make it LinkedIn appropriate, like building in public, like 3 things I learned as, a marketer or a content creator. And it'll hit very differently there versus Instagram versus TikTok or crypto Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I've learned that too. And I think like now there's like all these new decentralized social and kind of like obviously the incumbent social platforms as well. But I feel like you do have to tailor your content pretty well to each of these platforms. And so there was a while where I was testing it out with like short form video content across, let's say like TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Dracula, Warpcast, whatever, all of them. And they all like some of them would hit and do so well on one platform and completely flop on another. And it's like okay, because then you're actually like figuring out what type of audience is where, and it allows you to have better content. So it's kind of interesting because I have different communities and like different platforms now, some of which I can identify like what's the Venn diagram like over, like, if it was like 5 circles, like what's in between each of them. But otherwise there's like no other way. I don't know, like there's no other way to figure it out except to experiment. But
Yeah, I love to connect with your content, Ted. So I don't know if we follow each other yet, but I love to take a look.
we should. Mine's super unhinged. Okay. It's just like across the board, like sporadic. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm in the mood to do it. And sometimes I'm like, I'm not really gonna do it. Or I'll just be like, it's pretty unhinged.
I'm gonna fangirl for a little bit because I've never spoke to Ted like here on but I know of her through your content. I'm speaking of you like you're not here right now. But I don't think anyone knows this. You're kind of TikTok famous, right? I think the first piece I saw from you was something about like an AI toy on TikTok. And I think you cross-posted it to Twitter and then you're like a celebrity on Farcaster. So yeah.
I'm like an accidental celebrity on Farcaster, and I would say like 70% of them are like automated bots that follow me. But yeah, I was telling because like Pawan and I were working together, and I was thinking earlier back to you guys' conversation about creativity, right? And like, oh, where are you using social platforms? Like, how do you engage with social platforms, or like, let's say like these like marketing channels? Like what do you use them for? Like what's the purpose? And so I was feeling relatively uninspired at work, or just like, oh, I'm not like using the creative side of my brain. And I was like, okay, like let's do a fun intellectual challenge and try and make like a TikTok video that goes viral in a way where it's still like the nerdy stuff that I'm reading and consuming every day, like tech or, different emerging trends, etc. And then was like, see, can I like do this? And I just was like, this is fun and creative to like figure out, okay, what are ways in which you can communicate something that like I like and can talk about with like my tech world, but like put it on TikTok and see like mostly just like, average people to view it. And I said, that's like what I started doing. And it was like so fun. It was like such a way to express myself creatively that I wasn't anticipating, because there's like elements of storytelling and then there's like, okay, like how do you want to go about this? And so that was how like the TikTok journey started. And then there were like a couple of videos that ended up like I was like quote unquote viral that like had like more than 1 million views. But the interesting thing about TikTok and like why I'm so amped on decentralized social is because like the algorithm is really like the algorithm owns you. Like and like owns like your followers, like your viewing experience like isn't dictated by who you follow. It's really just algorithm driven. And so then I have all these like I would have people messaging me being like, "Oh, I don't see your content anymore." And I was like, "Oh, that's weird." Like I felt like I was doing like a video a day. And I was like, "Oh, it doesn't matter." And then if you like see who they're pushing your video to, they're like I feel like 97% of all viewers of my videos are non-followers, which is interesting. And like one argument is like, okay, that's great. I'd love your guys' take on this actually. It's like one argument for that is like, that's amazing. That's like all top of funnel who could end up then following you. But then I'm like, oh, if my followers don't see a video until like 5 days later, even though they're like checking the app every day, is that good? Like you're getting like great top of funnel, but then I don't know. I don't know how you guys think about that. Where I'm like, oh, if like people are following me, like I want them to like see my content when they come to the app every time. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think I have a sense, I don't know if this is true or not, but I have a sense the TikTok algorithm switched where in the beginning they highlighted the creators and they wanted them to get as famous as possible so you stay retained on the app. And then maybe it's switched now to the user and essentially how do we keep the users as retained on the app as possible after you already built a following? I think it's all interest driven. So that's wild. I'm not really active on TikTok anymore. I never created, I just consumed content there. But now my life is like on Twitter and more Twitter. But yeah, maybe it's like a flip from first, how did they serve the creators and poach them away from Instagram back in the day? And maybe now it's focused on the users and what they're engaging with.
Yeah, TikTok, like when I started learning about Web3, and I didn't even know what the F Web3 was on January 1st of 2022, I was just trying to get into crypto and NFTs. And I actually found a lot of people on TikTok sharing about it, but they didn't really look like any of us. There was probably like a handful of women during that time that I actually encountered and I followed, let alone diversity, right? We're talking about specific type of crypto bros that are sharing about things that we're also interested in, or, you know, a diverse group, fashion or beauty, don't have experience in it. But I think the thing is, at least for me, when it comes to TikTok, is that they really, it's either like hit or miss, kind of like, you know, Ted, of what you were saying. It's like they like really polished content, or they like this like random, like sometimes I just post random things for fun, just because as like A/B testing, just to see. And I just like creating content. I think it's fun. So I literally made a chopstick holder that I would literally make and like twist around. And that was probably one of my most viral posts. Like, Ted, I'm not like you with like 1 million posts. I haven't blown up on TikTok or social media yet. Just kind of do it for vibes and for fun. But it's wild out there. And I just started doing more like authentic, like I'll go on a mental health walk and I just started making videos and talking about random things that come to mind. And those will actually get more engagement than what I feel like is the educated stuff I talk about, which is like in my newsletter about like what's going on in fashion tech and trends, you know, like IKEA, Roblox, or, you know, Balenciaga, or things that I think are super interesting. Nobody cares about. They want to hear about your worst travel story, or like, what are your empties for this month in terms of beauty? So, I mean, again, like, I don't think it really matters as much the timing or when it pushes out. It's really about whether or not your content is like good. If there's like a hook, like, you know, you see people like literally holding a mug or something as they're going in, or, you know, just doing something like a movement to get you like engaged and interested, like you feel invested in the process, or it's like you're having a FaceTime conversation versus being spoken at. And I think that for me speaks to kind of like the Web3 perspective, which is like, how am I invested as a community versus just a consumer in your content? Are you asking me to comment? Are we part of your journey? Do we actually know about you? And I'll stop myself after this one story, which is there was a really famous TikTok TikTok influencer, and she had a fan meetup, millions of followers. Nobody showed up.
I remember this. And she was like so sad. She was like
Yes.
devastated because she like made bracelets or she like brought a
Yeah.
bunch of things to give to all of her followers.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think like that's something that I'm realizing too, is that honestly, it's so easy as like a creator, because I create content too, is just getting caught up in the grind. But it's like, how do you take a step back and connect with your community and actually build community? And I think that's a nod to Web3, of like, how do you co-create and how you do stuff together?
Yeah. It's interesting you say that because like now I'm like, oh, there's like two. I was like always a private person before I joined like Warpcast. And then before I was like, oh, I'm just going to like try and make a TikTok. And even then it's like all pseudonymous in some way. And so I'm like of two minds of like, oh, on one hand, I would have never been the person to encourage others to build a personal brand. And now that I've built a personal brand and have been afforded a lot of opportunities as a result of it, because like they can see your work ethic, they can see like your thought process, they can see how you interact with people. And like that's what can, it's like, oh, okay, like you basically get almost like, oh, what is it like to work with this person as you see them operate via their like personal brand. And I like never would have, I would have been like, oh no, like you don't need to do that. Like your resume can speak for itself. But now I'm like of a different mindset for that. And then on the other hand, like you can then like, how do you build a community through a brand then becomes it. And like, oh, is it a personal brand, a brand that you can actually like build a community around? Like maybe yes, maybe no. But I think what we've seen in crypto, with the exception of like Vitalik, that has like a cult like following that I think is like closest to Elon Musk, truly, that like the best brands, like I think Boys Club is like the like setting, like writing like the new case study for like, oh, how to build a brand in crypto and Web3. And it's like, if you know Dina and Natasha, you like realize like, oh, their hands have touched everything like Boys Club oriented, like the taste, the culture, the vibe, the energy, the empathy. But at the same time, it's like, it's not Dina and Natasha's brand. It's like a co-created brand and community as well. They just do an incredible job of like nurturing it. Anyways, it's just like rambling thoughts. But yeah. Elizabeth, Laguna, welcome.
Hello, hello. I'm so excited for this. I feel like I came in at a perfect time. It's just like in the midst of community and personal brand building and all the things I love.
You did. It's good to have you here. We have a full house now. I don't know if we have anyone else coming.
We might have Logan, which would max our whole screen space. But this is actually really cool
This is great.
And that's a record.
Well, Elizabeth, would you like to introduce yourself to us a little bit? And then we will go into sort of how we are finding work this year and how we're thinking about our freelancing or careers in the space. I know Emily's talked a lot about how she's hiring right now and has been talking about marketing roles and things. So we can dive into that stuff.
Yeah, that sounds great. So I'm Elizabeth, or Laguna on Twitter, product marketer, spent many years in Web 2 as a product manager, really at the intersection of marketing and product, even in that role, in the college education space. And then in the crypto side, I've been more on the marketing, everything from content to social to community, really thinking about how do we build out a content engine? How do we share our content across multiple platforms? Yeah, that's sort of me in a nutshell.
I want to hear more. This is personal. I want to hear more about how you went from like college, like whatever you were doing with like college education and product there into Web3.
Yeah, so this is a fun one. I was managing the college application service. And so most of my product was related to people applying to various programs at various colleges, and they'd retrieve their transcript. And it turns out that exchanging transcripts between institutions is extremely complicated. It's also largely still paper-based. And so I was in that space managing transcript flows, thinking about what that looks like in the pandemic when we weren't able to access and we were having a hard time with paper-based systems, and really fell into blockchain at about that time, thinking about self-sovereign identity. What would it look like if I could own my own educational record and submit it to an employer without having to go retrieve it from a college and have them print a piece of paper in an envelope and carry that to another institution? And then fell into blockchain and crypto during the height of DeFi summer, Ponzi farming, NFT trading, and really just went into full time from there.
Nice.
We talked about this early, but since you're here, Laguna, I want to ask you because you're really active. I see you in the Boys Club chat. I see you on Twitter. Then I also see you asking in Boys Club, or maybe it's SheFi, like where can I read more content? And then you're writing. Like how do you manage everything?
I batch a lot of my own content into my mornings. So typically, even if I'm not posting it in the morning, I'm usually writing that content when I'm drinking coffee in the morning and I don't want to be productive. And then you can sort of see in the shift in my day where I turn to wanting to dig into reading and consumption. It's like mid-afternoon, I would love to just sit down with like a digital book, really and truly. It's like, where can I get a really great article on this topic? Where can I get a really great podcast on this topic? And so that I find helps a lot. And then, yeah, I like to learn about as many different topics as I can, and I like to keep up to date with a bunch of different things. So I find that also it's helpful to just have a really regular content routine. That's sort of like I have a creation bit in the morning, and then I have a very much like a consumption space in the like late afternoon when I want to use my downtime, and then I pick up more of my work in the late evening when I have a lot more productivity.
Hey, that sounds amazing. Actually, like, I'm sorry, somebody wanted to talk, but like, I mean, I recently joined Debrel Uni by Bianca. I don't know if you guys know her, but like, because in marketing, sometimes, I mean, I don't want to get too technical, but I know that if we're working in tech, definitely we need some, some coding basics. So things like she encouraged us to write about developers relation almost every day, and that was really cool, because it's like doing exercise, every day, or I don't know, if you want to create a routine, like you need to practice that every day. So like you're talking about like creating content, actually you can add it in your routine. So that was really cool. And one of my questions was like, I saw that you opened a thread on Voice Club, I think opportunities, because you were looking for a role. And I wanted to ask you like, how's this experience, not in Voice Club channel, because I already know I participate there, but I wanted to know like maybe what you've been doing, because as I said in the beginning, maybe like I check, like I had to change my resume like a lot of times, thinking about which market I wanted to apply to. And also the interviews, like at the content that I see from you, Laguna, like I really like it. And sometimes I screenshot them, because once you put like these are the top, maybe these are the questions that you're gonna get, yeah, you should answer in your first, or you should ask in your first interview. And actually I applied them, and they said, hey, really nice questions. I was like, if you knew that I saw it on a tweet. Yeah, but like, okay, so I wanted to know your journey on that. And yeah, how is it going, like finding a new role?
Yeah, I think um, going back to the idea of like crystallizing your content in DevRel, I think writing things down is really helpful. I think that in some ways, I wrote that tweet mostly for me. I really just needed to write down the questions that I always ask, because usually they're just scribbled on a piece of paper. And I was like, I really should formalize these, and I really should conceptualize these in a really great way. The interview process in Web3 has been really interesting. I think that it's just such a weird space right now. You have all these companies who are saying, oh, it's so hard to find good marketing talent. It's so hard to hire. Meanwhile, you go to their website and there's no marketing roles posted. And so clearly, for better or for worse, they're going through a recruiter or they're going through only referrals, which is fine, except that there's a mismatch in supply and demand there. I've had everything from like a single interview and folks are ready to hire to like 4 or 5 rounds of interviews and like take home assignments and whole marketing plans. Yeah, it's been an interesting mix of things. I've also found there are lots of really great companies in the space who haven't quite figured out how to articulate what their product is yet. And it's great that they need a marketer to do that, but in some ways, like you can really tell that they haven't thought through like what their product does and why it exists. But yeah, sort of, I'm in the final rounds of a couple of companies at this point. So just trying to sort out my final details, hopefully. And then hopefully we'll be gainfully employed again.
Super exciting, and I love all the support. We were all kind of like silent and giving you your space there. Your last point, I mentioned earlier, I did invite some friends who are searching right now to this stream, so this is all like super helpful and relevant. But even your point of some projects, companies don't really know what they're selling or what they're doing. I just had a friend who said, yeah, I couldn't get them to explain it, so I'm not really going to join something I don't understand, and that the team doesn't either. So just validating to other people are going through that experience. I know earlier, Ted, you weren't here yet, or Laguna or Janie, but Jenny had been talking about some consulting work, contract work. I guess that's something unique about the Web3 space where you can work with a few different projects. And I know Jenny had a comment about even compensation, like, is it all in tokens or this? And I feel like the three of you maybe have some more experience on even sharing your own journeys of like pursuing any kind of, like independent contracting, consulting, and have some insights to share there.
This is a great question. And I think the journey is a little bit different for everyone. I would say that after I had left my last role, I had a bunch of outreach from people. Like, I think just like letting people know that, like, okay, like I'm focusing or like, kind of like figuring out what I want to be doing next is always a good thing. And like outlining, like, oh, here are things that you're interested in. I was surprised because I've never had a formal marketing role. Like, I've always kind of been more, Janie, when you were talking, I like could resonate because you were like, okay, it's like jack of all trades, do anything and everything. Like, I've always been more of like, operational, like storyboarding to execution for like new initiatives, features, products, platforms, like brands. And so it was always like a slice of what I did. But then to then have people like, oh, okay, like, do you want to help with like certain like brand marketing stuff or product stuff? It was just interesting. And so I would also recommend everyone to just like, there's certain ways that we describe ourselves, but I think when I went a little bit outside of my own, oh, here's like how I would describe myself, and actually went into like, let's say like 3 people who I respect and admire a lot, who I see as like professional mentors or professional peers, about how they would describe me. Or like, oh, okay, like let's say like you refer me to someone, like what would you say? It helps me clarify and hone like, oh, this is my like this is my skill set. Here are my strengths. Here's something that I could offer that I wouldn't typically say that I could offer, just because I was like stuck in, let's say, like the title of some roles, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm. And it's so funny you mentioned this because someone else told me the exact same thing earlier today. Just like, go to people you respect and admire and see how they would describe your strengths. And yeah, it makes a lot of sense also because I think there's a lot of new job titles that are being created right now. So if we just stick to what we've been doing, we might miss out on a lot of opportunities.
Especially if you're in that sort of generalist space and you're thinking about freelancing too, you don't have to commit. You don't actually have to commit to one type of freelance activity. You could niche down and say, I write long form DeFi content, or I write newsletters in this particular industry. But I've found that personally, like I've picked up a handful of different freelance things. They're all different. they're across the Web3 ecosystem. There's some social, there's some content, there's some long form content. And that's been really nice in this period of transition to just also play around and try things out and realize what things in my previous roles I was really good at, but I didn't really enjoy. And I'm noticing that those are things I'm not picking up as a freelance person. I'm picking up different things. And really just being able to like try stuff out and really dig into it has been really nice.
Yeah, love that. And also just tying back to what we were talking about at the very beginning of the call, I think at least for me, this really helps me stay creative if I don't really latch on to something specific and niche down and just keep it very broad because yeah, I think there's so much that we can play with.
There's so much to unpack here, but I'm going to hit 3 points. So, one is in terms of comp. I've seen crypto, I've seen NFTs, I've seen cash, like fiat. So, it really just depends, A, what the company is willing to pay, or as like a freelancer, what you're also open to receiving. And I think that depends also how badly you want to take on this role, either for the comp or because you really like the brand. Um, I think with crypto and NFTs, at least for me personally, it just depends on your appetite, I think. And I'll be transparent to say, like, I used to host a video podcast and was securing sponsors for this. And you can look me up on social. I haven't blown up yet. But there's a need for people to be professional. So they want you to be somewhat corporate web too, but degen, but kind of somewhere in the middle. You know what I mean? There's the degen crowd that is getting paid for certain type of spaces or pods. And then there is the more corporate crowd that probably cannot stomach what's going on fully in the degen world. So I think it's also about like how you're positioning and marketing your story. The second thing is I will vulnerably say that it's challenging because I think I come from, the Web2 fashion and beauty world. I would love to continue to pursue something more full time within this space in digital fashion or fashion tech. The market is just not fully there yet. Like there's, brands that are innovating, but in terms of, really putting dollars and opportunities behind it, it's quite challenging. And I realize also that the way that my LinkedIn or even my resume reads, I have like super corporate and then MBA experience. And then all of a sudden it's like podcast or it's, content creation or freelancer. Like, and one thing that I cognizantly actually changed was instead of saying that I was a solopreneur or that I was started an LLC or anything like that, I just use the word freelance because I think that, kind of catches all and opens you up to opportunities of just working with corporate if you choose to or other brands. And then the last and third thing that I'll say is I don't even have an Amazon link, guys. So this is like very real talk. I'm not getting anything. But my friend introduced me to this book. If you ever heard of it, I can send a photo to you guys. Sorry.
No, I haven't.
It's called The Artist Way, and it is abso-freaking-lutely brilliant. For anyone who's like going through a period of like wanting to figure out your creativity, like I kind of felt that thread in all of you guys who are here, which, it's a spiritual path to higher creativity, whatever you believe in religion wise. She kind of hits on different topics, but what the crux of this that I like is that it has a chapter. It gives you specific activities to do, things to unpack. And I'm not going to lie, it's a lot because if you do buy this, again, I have no link, so I'm just sharing this from the goodness of my heart. And I've been sharing this with everyone, which is there's a workbook and basically it's an 8.5 by 11. So I've done about half so far. So you literally have to write like, okay, my handwriting is terrible. I don't want to show you on camera and be sharing that, but 3 pages, 8.5 by 11, like per day, which sounds like a lot. And mind you, I like cheat, as in like I just write really big and long and like very spaced out because sometimes I just can't get there, and I'm so used to typing and not writing. But anyways, really helpful in terms of processing your thoughts and giving you space in terms of who you are. And I think it was Ted who mentioned, and also Bruni, you affirmed, in terms of asking people who know you to tell you about like what you're good at. And actually, sorry, fourth point is ikigai. If you ever heard of it? It's a Japanese term, but basically it's like this cross section. I don't remember the things exactly, but basically it's like what you're good at, what people think you're good at, what you could be paid for, and what you would make money from. And basically it's like this diagram.
And what the world needs.
What the world needs. Oh, thank you. Okay, this is why we need community, because fact check and correct me right here. But I actually said I really didn't remember, but it's something along those lines. But it's just very helpful. So regardless of whatever like stage or season you're in, like I like to go back to these things and try to really hone in and figure out like what is it that I want. Do I want to continue building for others, or even for myself, like in going through like a personal rebrand? Like, do I want to operate as Jumpstart Janie still, or do I want to like shed the vulnerability for me of like hiding behind a corporation or like an alias and instead just be my authentic self, which honestly is scary as shit. Sorry, I'm not sure if we're supposed to cuss on here, but I guess we're not on LinkedIn, so it's okay. But that's all.
Those are all really good points. I listened to the audiobook for the Rick Rubin book and then started The Artist's Way right after that. So both books are amazing, but The Artist's Way is really good, especially if you need to really dig into your creativity. And those morning pages are such a good idea. I highly recommend that.
So good. Wait, Riley, what was the first one you mentioned?
Oh, the Rick Rubin book. That's The Creative Act.
The creative. Okay, I'll
I
go
think
look
it
it
is.
up. Okay. Question: did you do any of the artist dates? Basically, one-on-one dates that you're supposed to go on yourself to like
Yeah, of
experience.
course.
Okay. Would you have a favorite one that you did?
I can't remember, but I often go outside. I spend days of just watching movies that inspire me, and I think that really helps as well.
Yeah, I love that too.
The Rick Rubin book is so good, but I will also say at Fest last year, both myself and Parker showed up with the same book, and it was the Rick Rubin book. And we're like, in the woods in Idlewild, like reading our little like the creative act about like, oh, it's like all these different things. And we're like, wow, we are so boys club coded right now. But I would recommend it because it's just like really great about creative expression and also like surprisingly just like executing. He also had a really interesting podcast with Chris Dixon, which I put on kind of thinking it would be like, ugh, I'm gonna have to like drag through this candidly. And I was like pleasantly surprised with, like Rick Rubin had like a lot of the anecdotes he shared from like his kind of like a bunch of the music world and beyond and the cultural world were really poignant and I think relevant and illustrated more of the points that we're more familiar with. So I love that. Shout out to that book.
Yeah, it's a really inspiring book, and it's sort of like a pep talk that I think everyone could use at some point.
Yeah, in
In
the
book form.
audiobook form, there's a gong as well. So it's so nice to just go on a walk and listen to it. And then there's a like Zen gong in between every chapter.
Love that. Do you guys, okay, random question, and please, host Riley and Puan cut me off, or if this is not on topic, and it's totally not on topic, by the way, so you better listen. But my question is audiobooks or physical, right? Like we're in Web3, we're into tech, we're into all these things. Everyone's using like 5 billion different social media platforms and consuming content, newspaper, magazine, the digital versions, like what people are posting on X versus on Instagram, or people who are on Facebook. Like, what is most comfortable to you? Or do you feel confused, or are you very like set on one? I'm very curious.
Yeah, I think for me, audiobooks depends on the book topic. Technical content, I have to do, like, I like to read it. Sometimes I'll read it, do a visual, and then also specifically for like technical podcasts, like I like to listen to the ZK podcast. It has to be on like 1x or 0.75x sometimes. And sometimes I rewind it like 4 times. So it depends on the content type, I think. I think for the Creative Act, that was a really good book for me via audio form. I enjoyed it via audio because it was like a pep talk, like what Riley said. So yeah, I think it varies. What about the rest of you?
I personally learned that I am not an auditory learner, and so I tend to go with a physical book. However, because I'm not an auditory learner, I've found that the right audiobook can be so helpful because I'm forced to focus. I can't be distracted. I have to be listening. I'm not necessarily great at listening to an audiobook. But I find I typically like business books that have diagrams, and I can't do that as an audiobook. It just doesn't work. I remember listening to Radical Candor, and I finished the whole audiobook in the car. And the first thing I did when I got home was I like went and looked up all the pictures because I didn't understand. I understood the concepts, but I couldn't visualize any of the 2x2 matrices. Like it wasn't complicated diagram. I just couldn't get to a 2x2. And so it's one of those spaces where you start to realize like, what are you good at? And maybe doing it even though you're not good at it is helpful just from a different lens and a different way of thinking.
Yeah. Interesting fact for me is that I have dyslexia. So even though I'm a writer and editor, sometimes it takes a while for me to read large books. So I do love audiobooks, and it forces me to slow down and pay attention to what I'm listening to as well. So recently I've been listening to Surveillance Capitalism and Technosis from, I think that book is from I don't know, 1998 or something. But they're both really good. I've really enjoyed Surveillance Capitalism, and I love that Spotify added audiobooks recently, so super helpful.
I'm like literally trying to take notes. We should have like a low-key book club, share our reads and creative things. But I'm going through the podcast and also the book list. But this is very interesting. Sorry, I was looking up ZK when you were saying that. That's a Zero Knowledge podcast, right?
Yeah,
May I derail us for 1 minute about a brilliant book club idea? Good friends of mine did a book club in which you don't all read the same book, you all read different books, and then you just summarize the book for everyone else. And I think this particular group of people, that could be super fun. So that we're not reading the same book, we're all reading different books and sharing it and distilling it for each other and then inspiring each other to read a new one.
I can see that for us. I'll be down 100%.
I'll be down. That's a creative idea. But to answer your question, Jane, just to build on your view of who uses audio versus hardcover books or tactile. Actually, I think we talked about this last month on the stream. I think we had Adrienne, and Riley, didn't she say that she's never listened to an audiobook because it puts her to sleep or something? I don't want to call her out.
If she did say that, I probably blocked it out. I can't imagine that. That's like saying that you never listen to a podcast. That's so foreign. But
yeah, surprising on this crew. But I love like going on walks and listening to a book. I know when I first moved to San Francisco, I was trying to get to know the city and the neighborhood. So I would just pop on my headphones, listening to something. But I'm part of a book club right now with a bunch of women here in Vegas. And I always get the book read, but I'm such a last minute person for certain things. So that's where I get the physical one because I'm a very fast reader. Versus when I listen to something from an audio perspective, I have to like pay attention. Otherwise it puts me to sleep. So if I can combine and optimize like a walk or errands and listen to, or driving and listen to an audiobook, then that's a great use of my time. But if I want to get through something quickly, I will use the book, which is very similar to what we said earlier, to tie it back into analogy or to themes where we were talking about like the different roles and you have to really tailor. So I guess I have to know my purpose, and then I will do a different medium.
Yeah,
I was just going to say that I personally haven't listen to an audiobook ever, but I do listen to podcasts nonstop, but it just feels very different to me. Like podcasts, I can go on 2 hour journeys, love it. I can follow the whole thread, but books is just different. They're just, I don't know, much longer. So I just stop paying attention immediately. It doesn't work.
I think I've noticed this too, where podcasts are almost like conversations sometimes. So it depends. So it's like a lot easier for me because it's someone talking and then the other person talking. It's like call and reply or whatever. And I can stay up to it. It's actually like, oh, I listen podcasts with like 3 people or 4 people are easier for me to listen to and get lost into because it's just like, oh, I'm a fly on the wall. But sometimes with an audiobook, the person's voice gets monotonous that like my mind what starts to wander if I'm walking, and then I'm like, oh shoot, I've been like in my own head for the past 5 minutes, and then I have to like go back and rewind. So I'm definitely a podcast listener. From an audiobook perspective, I would be like on a road trip where I'm actually the one driving is the easiest, or then I'm more of like a physical book reader is my own take on it.
Interesting. It's interesting to hear everyone's perspectives because I think even for like books is one thing and there's news and then podcasts. So even hearing you guys say like, oh, I like it with 4 or 5 guests versus like one, because it seems like, you're out hanging out and having a full on conversation. I heard something interesting where people would say like, oh, buy the book and listen to the like audiobook version together to cement your learning, kind of like you're in a classroom experience, like you get the visual plus the audio version. I feel like sometimes that's kind of a ploy to marketing to make you buy both. But I also find like, similar to what you guys were saying, like sometimes I just get like distracted and I've like lost 30 minutes of the book. But what I found actually helpful is like when I'm cleaning, that's my favorite time to listen to an audiobook or a podcast because it's like the most monotonous thing that I'm doing versus a walk. I like would rather either listen to music, like just think or process something, or just be on a phone call to multitask. It's like, it's so hard for us to monotask. We have to be efficient and be doing many things and like checking it off our list, kind of.
I feel like it's amazing how things have changed. I remember in the past, like, I mean, they asked, like, yeah, what book are you reading? Or like, how many books you read I mean, in a year? And I felt bad because I was like, oh my God, like, I mean, I really have a struggle, to pay attention. But like, so then now if I said, yeah, I listen to this kind of podcast, and of course people try to, oh yeah, she's an interesting girl. Or like I listen to these tech talks, like, oh yeah. So yeah, I feel like there are different ways to learn nowadays. If it's a podcast, audiobook, or a book itself, I like a book if it entertains me. Like for example, if it comes with puzzles or things that, hey, do this exercise to how you feel when XYZ. And so, and finally, what you said, Jenny, about the doing the audiobook and the book. What I used to do, it's like, well, because some books come with movies, right? So I was a big fan of, like me. I read Narnia, and then I watched the movies. And I was like, no, but that's not same as a book. I used to do that.
Oh my God, I love Narnia. I have a box set of like, and I've been rereading it. Okay, sounds very nerdy, but the movies are great, but the books, anyways. It's like those childhood memories of like something creative, something sometimes that we need that's not related to tech, not in our field of business, but can kind of just, give us a reset in terms of what we're thinking or even just, creativity in our mind.
Yeah, I think a lot of us listen to a lot of tech podcasts and crypto podcasts, but before, like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I listened to quite a few like D&D podcasts, like the Adventure Zone and things like that. So I think supplementing a little bit with creative things like that gives you some ideas for campaigns or for events and for I really want to encourage us to do more of that, whether that is watching hours of retro commercials, like TV commercials, or look, just random stuff like that, because I think there is so much creativity in like going back to think world building activities like that that can really benefit how we shape the current culture and how we sort of connect with people. So that would be my last piece of advice. If you all want to close it out, I think we're pretty close to 5 o'clock.
Yeah, that was maybe a closing is if everyone wants to share if they are currently tapping into something like a movie series, or that's really interesting, the retro commercials, Riley. But would love to hear from the group, and I think that'd be a wonderful way to cap off this very informative and delightful group chat session. I will put Bruni on the spot because I'm just going to go to my right and we can do a little popcorn style.
Is my popcorn popping? Was that it? Yeah. Okay. What I'm currently tapping into right now, I am reading David Lynn's memoir slash biography. So he wrote it, but also another person wrote it. It's kind of like a conversation. So the other person writes a chapter and then he reads and talks about the chapter. So it's fascinating. It's really interesting to know about his life, but also works and how creative he is at all times. So it's been really inspiring. And Popcorn Laguna.
Ooh, I have been in a TV mood lately, and I'm rewatching Dexter, which feels like a full departure from my day to day. I also knit while I'm watching TV, so I don't feel as guilty, and I feel like I'm still chronically multitasking, a chronic multitasker, and so that's been sort of top of my mind and top of my focus. I will send it over to Emily.
Okay, I'm a bit embarrassed to admit this, but honestly, it's like nonstop crypto all day, every day. It's like I'm just always on Twitter or listening to podcasts or reading books about crypto or articles. Essentially trying to set up my own internal algorithm, right, for all crypto content to spit out campaign ideas. But don't worry, like I'm not a psychopath. I do go outside. So on the weekends, yeah, I just got back from the beach this weekend. So it's literally like locked in on crypto. And then on the weekends, I talk to my non-crypto friends. We send each other animal memes and animal videos. And recently I did turn on Netflix because I had a non-crypto friend visit and we were just both so burnt out. We put on Love is Blind, Brazil, and just like laughed. So yeah, I don't know if that's like any tangible advice. I'm not saying that's what you should tap into, but it was a good time for me. I will pass it over to Jenny.
I think that
Yeah, go with that, Jenny. Yeah, you.
you're Jenny, right?
Yeah,
Apparently.
Jenny blockchain, but
Okay.
I realized there's a Jeannie too.
No, yeah, no. I want to hear Jenny first.
Oh no, it's okay. I can go after you. You can just pick me after.
Well, kind of similar to Emily. I'm not crazy about crypto, but definitely I've been following a lot on that. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. But yeah, I mean, I feel like if I wanna like if I'm gonna get like more, I mean, a different insight from something or anything, trying to like to enter to these kind of spaces is really cool. It's not that we just talk about crypto. I feel like today we're talking about different things, so I'm really glad about it. Sorry, I will pass it to Jenny now.
Thank you, Jenny. Blockchain. Okay, there's a lot, but I will just pick one, which is I'm very into like fashion tech trends. Like I'm a marketer by trade, so just kind of understanding what's going on. I am obsessed with what Charlie XCX is doing with Brat Summer. I think it's MFing genius. And I've definitely been watching how that goes. She just dropped an AR concert, which I won't get into. But if you're curious, then we can chat over DMs about this. But I would say I feel like I'm plugged in, I guess maybe not as much in like super crypto DeFi, because that's not necessarily my lane, but in terms of fashion tech, which is more my work side. But I think the fun side of work that I do is I started creating content, which I realize that may be a little bit work related as well. But creating content wearing digital fashion like AR filters, and that's been pretty fun for me. But on a more Netflix note, Korean dramas, there's a lot. We can talk about it later. And I pick Ted.
Nice. I have never seen Love is Blind, but it's like, or Love Island. And I'm like, I know everyone is like, what? And I was like, I know myself. I have an addictive personality. Like, I will binge the F out of it that I can't watch it. So I'm like trying not to. I was like, House of Dragons was like my weekly, oh, I'm excited for this. But for some reason, it like hasn't taken a hold over me as I anticipated. So where I'm finding a lot of inspiration right now is that finally June Gloom is gone in LA. And so I'm actually spending tons of time outside, like surfing or biking or hiking or skating. And it's like the perfect weather and the sunset like every night. It's just like incredible. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, I just like, you just walk outside and you look up and down the beach and you're like, okay, every single day, like hundreds of people, like literally swarm to the beach so that we can all watch the sunset at the same time. And like it means something different to every person. Like you're looking at the same exact thing, but everybody has a different way of experiencing it. And so for me, that's where I'm like finding a lot of inspiration and comfort and balance and everything. So it's not like anything that I can give you an Amazon link to, but if you're ever in LA, you're always welcome to come hang out.
We all need to come to LA to the beach. That is really beautiful. Like some of those photos you post, it just looks unreal, like the sunsets on the West Coast. So yeah. Oh, I'll quickly share because I realized I immediately passed it over to Bruni. I have some artist friends here and they invited me for like an art session. I'm thinking, I don't own anything. He said it's fine. We have paintbrushes and pads of paper. They were doing watercolors. And it was really nice to do something completely different of not being on your computer, not being online, but actually creating something in a colorful, creative way. And so we did that last week. And it ended up turning into a therapy session. It's a bunch of women talking about relationships and secure attachments. So it was a very interesting combination of art and therapy. Oh, art therapy. So
I love
that's
that.
something. If you have a chance, that's fun. But Riley, do you want to close everything off?
Yeah, well, this has been such a great time. Fantastic panel. We've learned a lot. We've shared a lot. Let's see. We typically have another sort of panel after this that morphed. Actually, we modeled this show after, so it's really special. Yeah, so for about a year before this started, we have like a monthly get together with some other community strategists in the space. And so we wanted to have this discussion today because we've seen a lot of people either looking for work or having trouble finding work or just having sort of frustrations in their work lately. So me and Pon really wanted to have this discussion to help inspire people who are watching this afterwards and to sort of have the people on here who are very experienced, who are very in tune with the space and freelancing and consulting and great at marketing and social media to give some fantastic insights. So I just want to thank you all again for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
so
It was
much,
fun,
everyone.
guys.
Thank you.
Pawn, do you know, are we getting more? Let's see.
Oh, I believe we just combined it all, so we're not getting anyone
Okay,
else. This was it.
perfect.
So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for co-hosting with me today and for you know the great discussion that we had. Do you have any other thoughts, or we want to just close it out for next month?
I think we closed it out. We had so many
Yeah.
great gems. Like everyone was wonderful. So many good insights from very diverse backgrounds and perspectives. So I'm kind
Yeah.
of sweating here. I don't know how
Me
you did
too.
your super long live stream. Oh, I'm so sorry about your AC.
Yeah.
But yeah, I normally, I join in at the end and I'm just listening and like eating my food. But today, stepped in your shoes, Riley, and sat in. And I really appreciated this 2 hours we had. I think
Yeah, I think we had a really great time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we really hit a lot of great concepts and a lot of great ideas, and I'm so glad that we had that many people to add their own thoughts as well. Really great. But anyway, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thanks, Riley. Thanks, all.
Bye.
Bye.